So you want to create a 2-camera setup for your next video interview or vlog, but you only have 1 camera. What are you going to do? In this episode of The Microfilmmaker, I am going to show you exactly how to fake a 2-camera setup. All right, let's get down to it. The first method that you use is in your editing suite. So what you'll do first is you will decide how tight you want your closest shot to be. And then you're going to shoot all of your shots 15 to 10% wider than what you want your tightest shot to be. This means that when you go into your editing software afterwards and you are cutting your pieces together, you can crop in 10 to 15% in order to create the look of 2 cameras. This is an amazing way to cover the cut. So if you have something that you said or your subject said that is a little bit stupid and you don't want it in there, all you have to do is crop in on the next shot 10 to 15% and you have covered your cut quite easily. Now the key here is 10 to 15%. If you cut in 10 to 15%, then most people who are watching your online video will absolutely not notice. A decrease in resolution up to 15% is not noticeable to most people. I say most people because of course if you are a video maker yourself and you are kind of an avid pixel peeper and you're obsessed with resolution, then you might notice. But the vast majority of people watching are not going to detect the difference in resolution, especially if the content you're creating is interesting in the first place. So let me just pop into my editing suite in Premiere Pro and quickly show you how to do this so that you can crop in 10 to 15% and get that 2-camera setup look. So here we are in Premiere Pro in the assembly screen, and we are just going to go into the editing screen. Now in the editing screen, we want to open up our effects controls, which looks like we have open, but there is no clip selected, as you can see here. So you want to select the clip, and you're just going to press the space bar to play some of the clip until you see the point where you want to cut in. So space bar, blah, 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 I'm talking. This looks fine. I'm going to zoom in a bit and pull into about here. As you can see down here, it looks like I kind of pause and stumble. So I've decided that that's what I want to cover. So I cut right there. Okay. Drag it in to the next point. Cut there. You can see in the audio waveform that nothing is really happening there. Of course, if I were doing this for real, I would actually listen to everything and do it properly, but just to show you, I'm doing it quickly. So delete that, delete the space, great. Now I want to join these 2 clips together without there being a jump. So you can play it here and you can see there is, actually that's not so bad. You could probably get away with that without cropping in, but we are going to crop in anyways. So I've selected the second clip, go over to scale, which is right here, and I'm gonna go 110. And now let's just see how that looks. So this is before the cut and it crops in. And this is actually playing at quarter resolution, just so it goes faster. And let me just show you in full resolution. So you can see it a little bit. Yeah, that looks really good. So blah, blah, blah. And then there you go. And if you're going to be really particular about it, which if you're doing something pro that you're getting paid for, you should, then of course you're going to want to try and match up eye lines and match up hand movements if at all possible. So there you have it. You can crop in 10 to 15% in Premiere Pro using the scale effect, which is under the motion category. Now the next method that you can use is one of my personal favorites because it does not affect the final resolution of the video. So what you want to be doing is changing up the focal length, going from a wider focal length to a longer lens so that you crop in gradually as you progress through the interview. This is an amazing way to create that 2-camera setup look and cover all of your cuts and move through the story in a cinematic way without losing resolution. So let's just review what you're going to do. You're going to start out with a wider shot. Let's take a look. So we start out in a wider shot, and then as you move through your interview, you're going to switch up your lens. Now, if you're using prime lenses, it's a little bit more annoying because you're going to have to change up the prime lens. So you might move from a 17mm lens to, say, a 30mm lens, and you're going to have to change those up. If you're using a zoom lens, like I'm doing in this video, then it's a lot easier. You just zoom in as you're moving through the video, which I'm going to do now. So you zoom in 10 to 15%, maybe even 20% as you progress, asking deeper, more interesting questions. So you want to start out in those wider shots with your kind of contextual questions. So you're creating context in the interview verbally with the questions and also by showing more of the scene. That's kind of interesting. Then as you progress, asking deeper and deeper questions, you can move in to that longer focal length. And then finally, when you get to those really exciting questions where you think that your subject, or if you're doing a vlog, you are going to really light up and sparkle, then you can move into a nice close-up using the longest focal length that you have, or the longest focal length that looks reasonable, which I'm going to do now. So this is about as close as I would want to go personally because, well, first of all, I don't want you to see every single pore in my face, and also because if I go in closer, then I actually have to change the framing because I will start cropping off some of my head, which will look a little bit silly. Which is not to say that you can't crop people in super tight and crop off little pieces of their body or head, but for the purpose of a vlog, it would look a little bit strange. So anyway, you then crop in a little bit further for those last, most exciting questions, and that gives you the two-camera look. The ideal situation would be to combine both methods. So you have your 3 different focal lengths in your interview or your vlog. Then you can also, in your editing suite, crop in by 10 to 15% as needed to cover the cuts. You slowly move your way through so that you're getting closer and closer to your subject as the story progresses. And then if you combine this with B-roll or action sequences, you have the makings of a really, really beautiful microfilm, and all done with one camera. Now, before you click away, let me just make sure you know what you are not supposed to do, because there is something that people do that I see in all sorts of videos, and it's really awkward and it doesn't make sense at all because it doesn't help the viewer follow the narrative. So what you don't want to do is be changing up the angle all the time. When a viewer is watching an interview, they are identifying as being in the position of the camera. Usually the camera is in the center and the interview subject is kind of angled in towards the camera, or they could also be angled in away from the camera depending on what the feeling the filmmaker is going for. If you are constantly changing the angle of the camera, the audience member, the viewer, feels like they are jumping around while watching this static interview, and it is very disorienting. I'm just going to give you a quick example of what this looks like so you can actually see for yourself how disorienting it is compared to the alternative, which is simply changing your focal length and also cropping in your editing switches. Hope this video helped you feel like you can definitely take on that look of the 2-camera setup in your next vlog or video interview. If you have any questions, pop them in the comments below. Make sure that you like the channel, The Microfilmmaker, and of course, head over to storyenvelope.com, which is my website, where I will teach you more about how to make